that. And that in some ways could be really pioneering work. And so that could be some future work that needs to happen. And the committee also, this committee could continue to digest feedback like we're doing a lot of tonight, and continue to bring it forward and lift it into the process of the whole Climate Council. And then I think the role of ongoing public engagement. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see people, because I can't seem to do both of those things. And
hold on, you hit the mute button.
Oh, that was great.
There you go.
Thanks, David. I'm really, really struggling through that one tonight. So I just offer that as sort of like the conversation to date, and kind of want to hear from folks. Again, like, this is our chance to put in the plan what we think needs to happen next to keep going. If we have agreement, and it sounds like we do, that we haven't done, the work doesn't end. The work isn't ending. It needs to not end December 1st. We don't even necessarily feel that we've done the complete, robust work that needed to happen for December 1st when it comes to engagement and public engagement. And so what do we need to name as far as like what needs to happen, right? This is our chance to kind of make those recommendations and name them. So at least I think that's what we're supposed to be writing about. So let's write about that. Anyone? Yeah, Kashka.
Hold on, am I on mute? No, okay. So I just, so I've been working with Capstone and Sue and Amanda and Indra, and we've been doing, well, Indra and I have been doing community engagement, and I've also put out a survey that is a little bit different than from what the consultants did for the Climate Council, just because, just the wording, et cetera. And I have quite a few answers, but I wanted to ask us, all of us, to come up with other questions that are pertinent for us to know. And that would be something that, you know, I think that as we're reaching out into community and trying to identify those community leaders that can get their communities engaged, what are we asking? What do we really want to know? What are all those different points that we need answered that will help us move along? So that's my question. I would love to have that. More questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kashka. So thinking about, help me make sure I understand. Are we thinking about naming some of those questions in this sort of implementation recommendations? Like, these are questions that people should be asking communities, or you're just sort of wanting to come back to this subcommittee to continue to have that conversation?
No, I was just referring to the slide that you just showed, and you said as far as, hold on, where is it? I'll have to take myself off of video. Hang on. What was it there? More opportunities. Okay, need to ask more questions to hear more about the experience of impacted communities. What do you mean by that exactly? Like, what do you mean we need to hear about the experience of more impacted communities? So some of the questions that I have in the survey is, you know, how has climate change affected you in your community, in your family, personally? But oftentimes what we found is that asking the question, how has climate change affected you, is kind of missing the point, because it's as if it's missing that link. So it's missing the link for people in low and moderate income communities. Oftentimes you can say, has the cost of electricity impacted you? Has the cost of fueling, heating your home impacted you? How would you feel about having a a hybrid or electric vehicle? So that's I was just pointing to that question that you had mentioned.
Okay, And I think, honestly, I think that bullet point, I think, grew out of something that you were lifting up in our last meeting. So I think this idea to ask more questions is, these are notes mostly from our last meeting, and the conversation we had. So I think that you're drawn back to that idea of asking more questions tonight. I think makes sense, because I think that one maybe came from you. Others though, because I think this is, just in terms of process, I think part of what we need to do is take this bulleted list of ideas and turn it into some text, right, that will go in the plan, that will come back to this group at our next meeting, and we'll be able to look at it and see kind of what's missing. This is our opportunity to say, here's what the work of the Climate Council needs to be, here's what the work that needs to carry forward around equity. So help me think of what else needs to be going into this section. And maybe tonight, in dialogue is not your forte, but you want to help write that section and bring it back to the group, that would be great also. Virginie, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to see, I think I've seen Kashka's survey, the survey that she's talking about. I think it is important that it is shared so that we can see what has already been asked in terms of questions. And I agree with what she says when she said that the way maybe some of the questions are asked don't necessarily go to the point. I think it's nice to be very specific because I want us to keep in mind that we have many members of our community who are kind of are unfamiliar with, the consequences of the climate change. So it is really important that we ask specific questions. We have to give them some hints so that they can start thinking about how climate change has impacted their life. So I would love to, have the opportunity to see that survey. It's going to, serve as, it's going to ground, our thinking, I think.
Okay, great. So more, definitely it feels like a theme that's running that needs to be in this implementation recommendations, right? Like the after December 1st recommendations is this theme around how we do public engagement, what more needs to happen, what some missed opportunities have been, but also like what needs to happen moving forward. And there's been a lot of ideas kind of tossed around tonight, and I've tried to capture some of those, but do people agree that that's a theme here that we want to call out as sort of like moving forward? Okay. And parts of that theme, let me sort of, like, I think I've written some of it down, is like, we haven't even had some initial conversations with some communities. That's really important. What we talk about in those initial conversations and how we ask the questions really matters. The opportunity not just to have those initial conversations, but then to come back to people and say, did we get it right? And ongoing opportunities for engagement, that's another piece. Other things that people want to name around engagement? Okay. We can try and call some of those specific recommendations out. I think that would be really powerful for us to do that. Abby.
I think I'm hearing, I think those are two great pieces that you mentioned, Sarah. I think there's also this part of the fleshing out of the action items with the community. So not just did we, we missed you the first time, this is our initial engagement, then did we get it right? That's still just like the plan, that the cap at its face. And then there's the, like, how do we actually make this an actionable plan that services your community, which is maybe where Kashka's survey comes in handy and valuable, of kind of understanding a bit more about the needs and the interests of in particular, the frontline and underserved communities.
Great, thank you. I'm taking some notes because we're going to have to turn this into recommendations, people. Anything else? Can I just say, Chris, the way you're holding your dog, I sort of saw you in my periphery, and it suddenly looks like Yoda, because it looked like your ears, the dog's ears, were on your head. It was really throwing me off. Let that go on the public record. Okay. So, anything else? So that's a theme. Public engagement is a huge theme of what we want to call out that needs to continue to happen robustly. And maybe there's also this piece around public engagement that I'm not sure, and we can come back to next week, around the role of public engagement with the Climate Council. There's the legislature, there's the rulemaking, right? So public engagement sort of on all three accounts, and what that looks like is another piece that came out for me tonight. Amanda, yeah.
I just wanted to bring up that as the CAB agencies have worked through some public engagement, I feel like it's really important when we are actually meeting people face to face and doing some authentic engagement that we're articulating the benefits for people. Because I think a lot of people who are really busy in their day-to-day lives, if we're too policy 10,000 miles up, that it's going to be hard to understand how it affects them. So I think that's something that should be considered when we talk about doing some authentic engagement.
Okay, great. So then the other theme, I'm going to keep us moving, Kashka, 1 second, just if you can hold that. The other, because we're going to switch to our public comment period in a few minutes, and I want to recognize I've been doing a bad job honoring our agenda. So one other piece that I want to come to. I think the other theme that I'm hearing from our conversation, tell me if I'm getting this not quite right, which is like the role of the ongoing use of the rubric and the guiding principles and the assessment questions, both their ongoing use in terms of the fleshing out of the recommendations, right, of the actions. Like we're going to turn the recommendations in the initial climate action plan are going to hopefully be revisited towards maybe potentially some March revisions, and they're going to start to become actions, right, that actually will have implementation plans, because the implementation plan isn't going to be in the December 1st, right? And so the idea is like we need to make some recommendations around the ongoing use of the rubric and the assessment questions in the ongoing work. And I'm not quite exactly sure what that looks like, except that we definitely can say it needs to keep happening. And then we've also kind of named at our last meeting the potential use of those and our recommendation that they be adopted more broadly than just with the climate plan, right? Or Climate Council, that they perhaps be integrated into the state's equity assessment tool it already uses, that they perhaps be adopted by A&R, that we hope the legislature embrace the principles. So I think that's the other theme that I'm hearing in terms of like what our section might say. Is that accurate? Okay. And so then we have those two kind of components, which, is there another piece that I'm missing as we're thinking about this implementation recommendations? Chris?
I may have missed it. Sorry. Did we also talk about engagement for the entire life cycle, the policy life cycle? Okay.
I'll write that one down. We have talked about it, but we didn't name it tonight. And there is this other piece that we touched on last time, which isn't in these other two themes around public engagement, equity analysis work, but the third one would be like accountability, right? Like what does accountability look like and how are we doing that? So I think that ties into what you're saying too. Okay. All right, Abby.
And then I know that we're going to capture this in the other part of the plan, but I almost wonder if we want to have a section here that speaks to the harm caused by time-bound, like inappropriately time-bound expectations around either the public participation or the implementation. Because if we don't learn from this mistake and we repeat it again in the future, post-December, sort of shame on us for not better articulating that as an objective for the future.
I like how you stated that, and that feels like what we lead off with. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pause us for this. I'm going to honor our public comment period, and then we do have some time at the end around other business. We can just come back to wrapping up next steps around writing this section, if that makes sense. Chris, does your dog agree? Oh, yeah, the ears went, so I think that meant the dog agreed. So yes, public comment. Pat, please.
Thank you. Pat Sagri. Abby, I really appreciated what you just said and many of the other comments about the tragedy of timelines that happens in the work world, happens in government. And so I'm wondering if there is something in terms of what this committee can do in terms of a recommendation to the council. One, around a specific action to ask the legislature on day one. I also, in terms of the deadline, and also some statement about needing some assurance, which goes to this idea of harm with the timeline, and that this work is going to get done. And I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's just really unhelpful to give people a piece of work to do and not give them the time and the resources to do it. What is it that I want to say here? Oh, the other thing is there are, someone asked earlier about changing the deadline, which was a question that I had. And I do know that there are a lot of times deadlines are not met within the state government, within state policy. Actions that are statutorily required aren't met on time on the schedule that's in the statute. And so I, as a member of the public, would like to make a request that this committee find out exactly what happens if we say, it's not going to be ready December 1st, and we need to figure this out to have the assurance that it's not going to keep getting railroaded, because as a member of the public, that is what it feels like. And it seems like I don't want to put words in other people's mouth, but certainly seems others have expressed a similar frustration. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. And I do think that is work that the steering committee has explored the answer to that question. And so we might be able to have them report back to us on that. And some of our folks are members of the steering committee, but Vanessa.
Hi, thank you. First, I want to apologize for not having somebody from 350 Vermont be at the meeting where we were on the agenda. We didn't know we were on the agenda until the meeting had started. So just wanted to name that. It wasn't out of lack of respect or not wanting to participate, as we truly didn't know that we had a slot. So I want to reiterate what Pat said and what Kaya said. I'm really concerned. I think others that I'm representing are concerned that once we set things in motion, we're not going to be able to retrofit them. And so this idea that, we can sort of fix this by doing public process after December 1st, I think is potentially incredibly flawed. And that I think we need to reconsider what happens between December 1st and March 1st or beyond. And that needs to be brought to the legislature, that we do need to try to change the timeline if we can. You could argue that this kind of process is in some way the root cause of climate change, right? It's a number of, a small group of stakeholders who are making decisions for everybody without the voices of the people represented. And if we keep doing this, we're going to end up with the same thing over and over and over again. We cannot get it wrong anymore. We just can't get it wrong anymore. We don't have time. You know, we've seen how people are harmed. We need radical change at this point. And if we don't do it, I don't know who will. And so I just want to say thank you for all the work that you all are doing. It's really clear to me that your hands are tied to some extent, but we do have voice together and we can ask for something different. And there is this hearing tomorrow. And I know, 350 Vermont is going to be setting up meetings with legislators for the next month and a half, and we can bring this up. I think we really need to stop focusing on the content and really start talking about the process, because if we don't have a good process, we won't come out with a good outcome. So I guess that's my comment. And I do think that, a lot of people are losing faith in democracy, as we know, and this is why. And I spend so much time trying to convince people that they can make a difference by showing up, testifying, and I can't tell you the despair that people feel in realizing that their voice really doesn't matter. It's not going to end well. So thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, and just want to acknowledge that through some emails and back and forth, Vanessa and I have actually connected now, and we're going to connect after the call today as well. And it wasn't through failure of intent of trying to get 350 Vermont, create space on our agenda and invite you, but some communication broke down. And glad you're here tonight, and hope that we can create more space for hearing from the work that you all and many others have been doing around public engagement. So, okay. Other public comment? We do have other public members in the room. Anyone else? Okay. I think that was enough awkward silence. Okay, so I'm going to move forward on our agenda. And actually what I might just do first, if it's all right with the group, is just come back to this piece around this section that we need to write. And I want to just name that some of what has historically happened is we have this great conversation, and then we need to write this section. And then it's really just left to the co-chairs to try to synthesize the conversation and write it and bring it back to this group. But it certainly doesn't need to be that way. I'm happy to have anyone else who wants to sort of work with me and Sue on trying to do that initial draft to bring back to the group, or anyone else who wants to just give it a go. So I guess I'm sort of looking for volunteers over the next. We're going to meet again in 2 weeks, and I think the goal is to bring that draft back to this group to react to, hopefully get it to you before the meeting, right? So you can read it, review it, react to it, and then we can sort of keep working on it together in the next meeting. And I'm curious, is there anyone sort of has some time over the next 2 weeks and they want to give a little time to that work? That'd be great. Or a lot of time to it. Yeah, Kashka.
I'll do it.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay,
I will try to give some time to it also, Sarah.
that'd be great, Beverly. That'd be really appreciated. Thank you.
Same thing.
Great. And Chris, is that a thumbs up, like thanks everyone, or a thumbs up, I'll help?
Just thanking everyone, because my capacity is already tapped on the other sections, and I've got all to handle, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's what I thought, but I just want to make sure. And I appreciate, people being honest about capacity as well. So thank you. When I recognize that a lot of folks, Iris is also doing a lot of work on other sections of the plan and support of that too. So, okay. So I've got Kashka and Beverly, and maybe we can even find a time to to meet next week, Kashka and Beverly, to just kind of look at some of it together. That would be great. I'll follow up by email. Okay, great. So then moving along our agenda.
And Abby.
And Abby. Oh, did I miss Abby? That's great. Thank you, Abby. Okay. And Ross. Oh my God. I'm really, okay. Abby, Ross. Okay. So legislative hearing coordination. Sue, I don't know if you can hear us again or how your travels are taking you. Did you want to jump in on this one?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, shut me off if it doesn't work. What we have planned at this point is the hearing will begin with Jane sort of orienting the legislators. And just to remind you, it is one committee, but it is the committee that sort of wrote this section and was the sort of main author of the bill as a whole. So it is a committee of jurisdiction on our bill. But so Jane is going to orient the committee on sort of the council process overall. I'm going to orient the committee on sort of who we are, how we were formed, and sort of the process of developing the guiding principles. Sarah's going to walk the committee through the guiding principles and the rubric and how we are attempting to integrate them into the work that's being done. And then we will turn it to members who have sort of raised their hand, and that includes Virginie and Kashka and Iris and Beverly. I'm still hoping you are on deck. And you all, I would like you all to think about, you know, the order. Danielle is also potentially available, but is in a class. And I just wanted everyone to know that they should think about what it is they want to share. Obviously, a lot of important messages tonight. I want to say that, you know, we have been given this opportunity to have an impact and have input by the legislature. This isn't something the legislature usually does. So even though I hear the harm that being rushed gives, it's actually a year that's never been given to anybody of this magnitude and breadth before. So I want to kind of keep that in perspective personally, but I feel like everyone should share the points they want to make. They'll have about 2 to 5 minutes, and then there will be questions. And I guess that's sort of the process. So people can weigh in or ask questions, but that's pretty much, if you were able to hear that, I'm very happy. Thanks.
We heard you, Sue. That was great. Thank you. And Beverly has her hand up. Go ahead, Beverly.
Is this going to be on a Zoom meeting?
Yes, you can participate by Zoom. It's a hybrid meeting. They're actually meeting in person at the legislature now, but you can participate.
Yes, and I'll be meeting virtually, and I believe that what I need to do is get a final list of participants to the chair tonight, so that they can give you the Zoom information. And I'm hoping that when we convene at 6, and I'm hoping we can actually stay on this Zoom call, just the 5 of us, quickly, just to say what order we would like to speak in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so if you're going to be a part of that tomorrow, if you could just stay on the call for a few minutes. I'm not going to stay on the call, but I know where I'm at in the order. That'd be great. And then anything else on the thing? And thank you to all of you who are going to participate. Thank you. Anything else on that? Yes, Chris. Oh, go ahead, Jane. Sorry, go ahead, Jane. You had something?
Yes, sorry, I can't raise my hand, but I do just want to say that I want people to participate, as many as you can, and Zoom is great. And also just wanted to let people know that I would be going in person, and if anybody wanted to join me in person, that is really powerful and would be wonderful too. And I'd be happy to meet people in the lobby or orient anybody to get into the room, or anything I can do to help with that. Happy to.
Great, thanks, Jane.
Jane, are they still bringing people in through the back in the service door?
No, I think they told me I can just come in any old door now.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
The thing I was a pitch I was just gonna suggest, only if other people agree with it, is when I testified earlier, and it was not on behalf of this committee, I was just wearing my hat as a steering committee member. I made the pitch for if they open up the Global Warming Solutions Act, or when they open it up again, to please elevate adaptation resilience to the same level of importance as the greenhouse gas reduction. And the Chairman Briglin, I think he actually said he'll offer me a call, but that they didn't do that he didn't realize, kind of the import of that. I'm pretty sure I remember him saying that when I testified. But from my perspective, and certainly defer to the USVO on this committee, but to my mind, from a just transition standpoint, that's absolutely critical because, as I've said before, we can go negative emissions globally right now, tomorrow, but what we've already done to the atmosphere is going to cause harm for decades to come for people who aren't even born yet. And we've got to make that a priority, along with reducing the cost in the first place. So if you feel that that's appropriate, I'm not going to testify tomorrow. They've heard from me enough. I just want to put that out there. So.
Thanks, Chris.
Wait, Chris, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that one more time? I kind of missed that part. What do you think would be super important?
Just to elevate right now, the way the Global Warming Solutions Act is written is that it comes across as, and I think this was the intent, where the top priority is greenhouse gas reduction and meeting those targets. Now it does speak to, improving climate adaptation resilience, but it's almost on a second tier. And it really needs to be elevated to where it's both, in my opinion, they need to be elevated to where we need to both reduce the greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the future harms and the causes of the problem in the first place. But we also at the same time simultaneously need to take actions in the area of climate adaptation and resilience. It's not a either or proposition, and I'm not sure why it's my circumstance. I wasn't really part of the development of the act, and actually I didn't even ask to serve on the council. I just got recruited to, so I don't know where that dichotomy came from.
I'm gonna let that door go. Watch it.
And Pat's gonna let that door go.
Yeah, Pat.
Oh, those.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat.
But for some reason there was that dichotomy that was drawn, and I don't understand why that was. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And that really is an equity issue, right? Like lifting that up is because we know that the greatest impact around climate change is with marginalized and low-income populations. So lifting up the investments in resilience and adaptation is critical. So I think that's where you're coming from on that one. Am I right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because we've had enough disasters here. It's the people on the front. I mean, the frontline people are the ones suffering, and including folk may not know this. And I just want to throw this out there real quick, but what kills most in Vermont are the heat waves. It's way understated and way undercounted, but the flooding gets the attention, but it's really the heat waves that kill. And in 2018, they identified they attributed the heat wave deaths of 4 people to a heat wave. It's my understanding that it's hard to count that because there are oftentimes other underlying conditions, but and then people are stoic. They don't want to seek cooling shelters, or maybe there aren't cooling shelters to open. They're not available at night. Oftentimes they're only available during the daytime. And now because of global warming, the nights don't cool down like they used to, and people can't get respite and they die. And it's a real insidious concern. And then of course there's a particulate matter. There's an article that just came out in the New York, and a study that came out today showing that the fires out west are also actually causing more asthma illness and death in the east. So we're all in this together, but it's the folk who, get us, it's the folk that we're talking about, and the communities that are on the front lines that are feeling most of these effects.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so I'm moving us along. We've got 5 minutes for other business, and I want to name some other business, which is an offer or suggestion to you all that as we think of our next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll obviously come back to this part that we need to write. But could we also, what do folks feel about offering more time for a larger public comment period like we did 2 weeks ago to allow, for instance, 350 Vermont, but also others who are doing some of this great public engagement work to come back to us and again create more space to hear from them. And I wanted to offer that and see what folks thought about giving more of our next meeting to that. Okay, great. So we can go ahead and try and carve out another 30 or 40 minutes as opposed to our shorter public comment period. Okay, sounds good. Anything else in terms of other business? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Thanks for hanging in there for this conversation. I really appreciate it. And I think the ask is for folks who are testifying tomorrow to just stay on. Oh, Matt, I see your hand is raised as we're about to sign off.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, could you clarify about Abby's question in the chat?
Yes, I apologize, folks, and I have not really been monitoring the chat.
You're totally fine.
Yeah, no, that's okay, and let me see if I can find it. Let me also let me just take a moment to say, this meeting is open to the public. I see Vanessa's question. Yes, this is a public meeting, and its agenda is posted, and its minutes are posted, and it is a public meeting. And Abby's question is, the objective of the testimony is to offer the committee an update on our efforts. Do we also have an ask or just share progress to date and suggestions for the next phase? I think at this point, Abby, the idea was we were going to at least bring them up to speed on how we came to what the guiding principles are, provide them that education, which they haven't had, and how we got there, and sort of what's embedded in those, I think. And then I think subcommittee members that are testifying, I think are encouraged and open to, share some of what's bubbling up as recommendations for next steps and some of those concerns, and to name those, even if we haven't sort of fully brought them to consensus in the subcommittee. I think that's fine and appropriate. Okay, great. And also, I just want to name something. I think my department in state government is having a very robust conversation around the role of chat in Zoom meetings, and especially from a perspective of accessibility and even ADA compliance. And we tend to rely on chat as a way, and sometimes chat is actually easier than voicing in a meeting, but vice versa. We also, I, for instance, work with a lawyer who is legally blind, and she can't actually read the chat. So when folks are relying on the chat to share information, she's not able to participate in real time in that conversation. So I wonder, one of the things that we could do that I didn't do very well tonight is just to sort of in live time, if people use the chat, to try to just read those comments into the conversation. But also maybe would encourage folks not to rely on the chat. If you can actually say it, I think there's a lot of value in actually just saying it as well. So just put that out there for consideration. We haven't talked about how we want to do that, but it's something we've been thinking a lot about in my department in terms of accessibility. So, okay.
Hey, Sarah.
So I have, yeah, Chris.
Before you leave, so Vanessa was actually asking about a House meeting. If that's going to the House committee meeting, is it open to the public? I assume it is, but I'm not finding the calendar right real fast.
Right, it's House Energy and Technology, sorry, Vanessa, and it should be open, like all meetings of the legislature. It might not be posted yet, but it should be open. You should be able to watch it.
Is there a way you can forward the link? I think Sue talked about getting the link to people.
I don't have the link, and I don't know actually anything about the whether there's going to be public. I know that we were invited to testify to a committee hearing, which I have to assume is open to the public as always. I have to, at the end of this meeting, somehow get the information about who is planning to testify to the chair. I have to assume it's open to the public. I don't know anything more than that, but there is no link that anyone currently has. And I think that last year, what would happen, at least my experience is when I would testify, there was a particular link in, and then the rest might have been like on a YouTube or something. So I would go to the legislative page. And if you're a member of the public, so I don't think there is a link to share.
Then I have one.
That's right. So the link that Sue will share with our committee members is so that they can be in the meeting providing testimony. It's otherwise a live stream. And so I did just look on their page. I don't see that they've posted the hearing is happening, but you can see, if you go to that committee's webpage, you will see the live stream link, so you should be able to do it. And it's
Thank you.
scheduled. Yeah, no problem. And it's scheduled tomorrow. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. It's scheduled tomorrow, I believe, to be from 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
And it
All right.
may be that we are part of the agenda, because the chair told me in an email that he was expecting just to have 90 minutes. So there might be other testimony about other things, I assume related, but I really don't know. Just so you know.
Okay. Oh, great. And somebody did find the link to the agenda. That's great, because I wasn't seeing that on their page. And so Becca posted that. Thank you, Becca. And then Chris put up the live stream link. So there we go. All right, very good. Go team. It takes a group. It takes a team. All right, very good. Okay, so folks, we're going to end our meeting officially. We're going to stop recording, and then folks can stay on. The few folks that are coordinating for tomorrow can stay on. Thank you so much, everybody.
I'm wondering if Jane or David can stay on with me for 5 or 10 minutes.
I'm on, Sue. I'm shuttling kids, but I'm here listening too.
Jane,
Okay,
you're going to be the
cool.
one who has to stop the recording. If you could do that quickly on your phone, or make me host to do it.
Wait, I thought you were host.
No, every time you join, you become the host.
Oh man, really? All right, I'm turning to park at the soccer fields, but I can't figure it out while driving.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
So
Just
David,
wait a
can
second. To
Pulling over now. Yeah, hold on. Let me figure it out more. Cancel. Oh, got it. Stop.